Let's face it, B2B sales is in trouble. Blast emails, cold calling and irrelevant messages, not to mention an economy causing uncertainty to spike, is creating a canyon-sized divide between buyers and sellers alike. The answer? Deep sales. Today, organisations that adopt deep sales strategies and technologies are setting themselves up for long-term success with an approach that sets their sellers up to be seen as trusted, strategic advisors by the buyers they serve. We at the world's largest professional network are sitting down with some of the most innovative sales voices today to discuss what it means to bring deep sales into an enterprise organisation. Let's dive in with our host, Rob Humphrey.
We're trying to make sure that we understand what our target market looks like. We understand who we're trying to sell to. We understand what we're trying to sell to them. And we understand the message that we need to deliver to get them interested. And part of that is understanding who we're talking to and what their motivations are.
On today's episode, I've got Peter Carlisle. Peter is an international sales leadership expert. He's currently the CRO of a major cybersecurity firm, Adama. He's got 30 years of IT experience with sales leadership roles at Dell, HP, and others. He's an awesome guy to talk to and is also a musician going on tour this summer. So let's get at it. Peter, congrats on your new MDR launch last week. I saw your post on LinkedIn, and now Adama is a UK-based cybersecurity leader. Talk to me about how this launch benefits your customers and why your sellers are excited to sell it.
Well, thanks, Rob. We were really excited to launch the new MDR last week, and there's a couple of things that really stand out for that. First of all, it's a turnkey solution, which means that we can deploy really, really quickly, and it means we're not relying on the customer to provide a huge amount of resource to help us stand up the offering. So it's very quick for us to start adding value to the customer and helping them solve some of their security issues. For that reason, of course, it means potentially it can run on a shorter sales cycle than some of our traditional, more bespoke solutions, which means that the sales guys can turn their deals around more quickly, which of course means shorter sales cycle, retiring quota in weeks rather than months, perhaps. So it's really positive for the sales guys. And then thirdly, we've always been very selective about our choice of partners within Adama. And we're really keen to be engaging with Microsoft on this product. It's an MDR solution, managed detection and response, that works on Microsoft's XDR suite. So it's really helping us to bring us closer to Microsoft and really be able to pitch towards the Microsoft customer base, which is a really big space for us to go and play in. So I think simplicity of deployment for customers, speed to revenue for customers, and really doubling down on our Microsoft partnerships. Three reasons to really celebrate the new product launch.
That's a huge partnership. Congratulations on that, by the way, and congratulations to your team. We have this little ritual where we ask people what's not on your LinkedIn profile. It's a way to get to know each other.
So the thing I've never talked about on my LinkedIn profile is one of my biggest hobbies outside of work, which is music. And I'm in a band. I actually front a blues rock band. I write songs for the band. We play at quite a lot of festivals, particularly in the summer. And that's a whole part of my life. It's a big release from selling in the corporate space, because when I'm out there on stage, screaming those songs out, it's very difficult to worry about anything else going on in my head. So it's a great release, great de-stressor, but looking forward to it. We've got a busy summer coming up with the band this year, so that's very exciting too.
So what's the band name, Peter?
The band's called Slow Train. That's spelled SLOE. That's in Slow Gin, which was
nice.
One of the first songs we recorded together. It's a Joe Bonamassa tune. We'll be playing that and many others. It's got our first gig on Friday night of this year. We've been going since 2014, so we're 9 years together.
That's fantastic.
Don't talk about that one very much on LinkedIn, but there you go. Maybe I should.
Well, there we are. Yeah, I think you should. I mean, I know LinkedIn is becoming a place to share more stuff, especially you seem like a pretty dope person and a cool sales leader, and now you're even cooler. So music question for you, Rolling Stones or Beatles, if you had to choose?
It's a tough one, but I'm going to have to go with the Stones.
Okay, one more. Taylor Swift or Jane's Addiction?
That's one I'm kind of less excited for. I'll go with Jane's Addiction on that one.
Okay, cool. Little Perry Farrell. Okay, cool. So, Peter, we're almost a quarter of the way into the new year. How are you approaching 2023? What feels different?
Yep. Well, I know we're almost a quarter of the way through the year because we had a management meeting this morning and everyone reminded me that we're almost through the year and wanted to know exactly how we were doing and how things were going to end up. 23, I think from a Dharma point of view, it feels like we've made a strong start. The organization is a little bit more mature, a little bit more settled. I was hiring a lot of people into the sales organization a year ago. Those people have mostly now had best part of 12 months with us to bed in and become more familiar with how we do business and our portfolio. So I feel I'm landing in this year with a better prepared team. So that really helps. I think in terms of the marketplace, the biggest change I think is that we're now really starting to get back to face-to-face selling in a way that we haven't for probably 3 years. 2020 and 21 it didn't exist at all. 22 was very variable, with events still getting cancelled and people still not sure what they wanted to do. I think we're now definitely seeing a much more fully fledged return to face-to-face activity, which means that we need to think about how we do that effectively again. When do we have meetings? When do we run events? What's our strategy around those things? So I think there's much more scope to engage face to face, but I think perhaps with a caveat that says, because of everything we've been through, people are still a bit more selective. So I think you've got to be able to build your relationships and sell face to face, but you have to do it in a smart way and accept the fact that not everybody is going to want to go down that route, and you're still going to have to use other tools and other options as well. There's definitely a different feel going into 2023, and we're certainly seeing much more of people coming to the office, people coming to events. It's definitely a much more face-to-face year, which personally I really like.
Yeah, for sure, and I appreciate you sharing. So let me ask you, what are the opportunities that you're seeing right now for this year?
So opportunity-wise, I think there's a couple of things. The pandemic years shone a really big spotlight on security. It became a hot topic. A lot of organizations really struggled with security because they didn't have their staff in the office, people were working remotely, and that was throwing up a lot of security issues. So I think it's helped to get us onto the front page, as it were, with some of the executives. So security was very much a technical conversation, sitting in IT and operations. But I think that the high-profile nature of some of the security issues that came over the COVID years have really helped to get us the attention of the CFO and the CEO. So that broadens the appeal and enables us to widen the audience that we're selling to.
What's the number one tool that you have to arm your sales force with, even if it's really expensive? Like, do you have a go-to tool?
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of Navigator, for all the reasons that we've talked about. Because I think if you can work behind the scenes to understand who's who within your target organization, find out a bit about those people, find some ways of engineering a conversation or an introduction to those people, I think that really helps. So Navigator for me is a great tool, and I think salespeople can really benefit from it. I think most people could do more with it, and I think we're continually trying to push the art of the possible. But just that ability to look inside organizations and understand the structure and the people, find out a bit about the people, whether they're new in post, busy with media activities, like like to get involved in it. But you can find so much out about your target audience, and I think that's a huge plus when you're trying to broaden your footprint, get into new accounts, or broaden your footprint within a key account.
So let me ask you, and I appreciate you sharing, what are the priorities for you as a CRO to combat the challenges and, or harness the opportunities?
Well, the priorities don't change, hit the number. So, and that's and we do that by maximizing sales to our existing customers and bringing in new customers at the right pace and the right level. So it's finding a way to do those two things. So that means going after the right target customers and building the right partnerships with our existing customers to maximize revenue. But there's no getting away from the fact that the job is about doing the number, and that never changes, Rob.
Peter, you had mentioned that you started your IT career 30 years ago. How did you get into IT? And I think you said you started at Dell. Is that right?
It's almost 30 years ago, Rob. It's actually next month will be my anniversary.
Okay.
It was April 1993. So two important things happened in the same month. I joined. I started to sell security. So I started to sell technology, and I got married. And both things are still working out. I'm still married, and I'm still selling technology. So there we go. So I got two big anniversaries coming up to celebrate. So I was in sales, but I was selling advertising into telephone directories. Now, a lot of people listening to this won't even know what telephone directory is. So for background, it was a paper book that people's phone numbers were in, and if you wanted to find somebody to come and fix your car or fix your windows, you'd look up Windows under W and you'd find their name. And we used to sell advertising to them, to make them stand out on the phone. And I was doing that for a couple of years. And we got computers delivered to the office, and they were the really simple sort, running on MS-DOS, no graphics or anything. And my leads and my customer details, instead of coming in in scraps of paper and on cards in like a shoebox, they started to appear on the screen of this computer, and this was amazing. And I remember saying to one of my colleagues over a coffee, I bet the guy who sold these computers is getting paid more money than we are. And then that weekend, I bought a newspaper, and on the front page of the business section in the newspaper, the Sunday Times, in England, there was a big ad for Dell saying, "We're hiring. We don't mind if you haven't got technology experience, but if you've got some life skills and you've been able to sell, we'd like to talk to you about selling our technology." And I applied.
Wow.
And off I went. And I met lots of really interesting people from different walks of life, estate agents and people who've been working retail and hospitality and all sorts of things. And I made it through the selection process, and I got trained on how to sell computers. And they sat me down with another book, which was a directory of British business, and said, phone anyone you like and tell them about our stuff. And so that's what I did. I used to sit down and make 200 calls a day and try and say, hey, maybe you'd like to buy some computers. So that's how I.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. The time you were doing that, I started my career as a recruiter, and I didn't have a computer. I had a Rolodex, which for anyone like under 30, that's like a bunch of index cards with people's name on them. And I was literally smiling and dialing, as they said, all day long, hundreds of phone calls a day. So I get it. So let me backtrack though, just to double click here. You had no experience in IT. You answered a newspaper ad. Dell took a chance on you. That has to influence how you hire now or how you go after new talent. Is it impacting that sort of background, your hiring decisions?
I like to think it does. I try my best to keep an open mind when I'm talking to candidates, and I try and look beyond the headlines and try and understand the individual that I'm talking to, because at the end of the day, attitude and work ethic and some of the things that you can't really teach people turn out to be much more important. I mean, you can teach process, you can teach facts, you can teach product, you can teach industry knowledge, but the way that the person is wired underneath that. Because I think if you're going to be successful in sales, you have to have determination. You have to be able to deal with ups and downs. You have to have a really strong work ethic. you have to have the discipline to get going every day and get after it. And I think that those skills can go a long way, even if your background isn't classic for the role that you're going into. So I try and look a little bit beyond the the headlines of experience and qualifications, and really try and understand the personality, the motivation of the person I'm talking to.
Yeah, and you've got the track record to prove. You got people doing very well though. So I appreciate you sharing. It's an awesome story. So let's change gears a little bit. At LinkedIn, we're doing this, right? At LinkedIn, we're driving the conversation around this concept of deep sales. And that idea is really, informed, insights-driven outreach is the path to success. So does that align with your sales philosophy at Adharma?
Yeah, we're trying to make sure that we understand what our target market looks like. We understand who we're trying to sell to. We understand what we're trying to sell to them, and we understand the message that we need to deliver to get them interested. And part of that is understanding who we're talking to and what their motivations are. So therefore, being able to research our customers and our prospects and build that information is really important, because we don't want to sell. We don't want to try and sell to everybody. In the same way I talked about earlier, we don't want to try and sell everything. We don't want to try and sell to everybody either. So there's a finite group of organizations that we want to go and talk to. So being able to find them and find the key individuals within those organizations, that means that the conversations we're having are much more targeted and have a much higher chance of success. In terms of how do we get the outcomes? I mean, there's really three areas. We've got some established existing customers who spend reasonably significant amounts of money with us and have a relationship that perhaps has been going for a couple of years or more. But we can do more with those customers. So there, it's all about building a deeper relationship, building a deeper partnership. And part of that is building our contact base within the account. I'm sure you'll have seen this, but one of the things that I've seen people do many times over the years is rely far too heavily on one or two individuals within an account, and everything works because I'll call Bob. Bob will tell me what's going on. Bob will help me get those a deal, and suddenly Bob's gone. Bob's gone to work somewhere else.
Bob's out. Yeah.
And you haven't got a plan B. So broadening your footprint within a key account is really important. And so we're using data and intelligence to do that. We're then trying to pitch for new logo business, which is a really important part of our growth. That's about finding the right companies in the verticals that work best for us, and then finding the key individuals within those verticals to have the conversations that says, hey, don't know if you've come across Adharma. These are some of the things we can do that we'd like to talk to you about. So really fine tuning the audience we want to talk to, and then helping ourselves prepare to go and talk to that audience, really key. And I think that aligns in terms of that sales philosophy that you outlined, Rob.
Yeah, that's really in line with what we're seeing from a research standpoint. I mean, you're probably aware of this, but in a recent study, we found that top performing sellers spend 10% less time than average performers. And the things that you've highlighted here are in line with that research. They're doing three things. They're focusing on accounts with white space, right? They're identifying buyers when they're ready to engage, sort of prioritizing targets. And the thing you mentioned that I want to double click on is they go beyond the idea of these standard connections or shared connections, finding new allies and deeply understanding that decision-making and influencing a vector. So that's interesting. Now, I obviously have read the case study that you're aware of, that you're involved in from our sales solution team. And that case study talks about the benefits of our deep sales platform, specifically LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Sales Insights, which I use religiously. So you have a quote in there. It says, if we're selling into the right target market, those customers will see the best of us. Can you elaborate just a little bit on that? And just in general, the business problem you're looking to solve with new sales technology?
The fact that we don't want to try and sell to everybody. We think we'll know what a good target customer looks like for us. in terms of where that fits, and that's it's sort of slightly below the huge global organization, but above the SMB space. So it's those sort of mid-sized corporates where they have an understanding of the need for a good security offering, realize the importance of it, are prepared to set aside the right type of budget for that solution, but don't want to try and do everything themselves because they don't have a big enough in-house team to say, let's build our own security operations center, or let's take all of that in-house. So there's a good group of organizations that we think are a great fit for us. So if we can find those organizations and talk directly to them, then our message resonates much better because we're pushing on an open door. If we go either above or below that target market space, then we're going to get into more difficult and challenging conversations where we don't necessarily sound such a good fit, and it's not such an easy sell. So if we can align our sweet spot with the right customer profile, then it's a much easier conversation on both sides, and things should move much more quickly. So that's really what I was alluding to, Rob.
Got it. Totally. So, I mean, I'm a salesperson, right? So you get that. And I would say that sales is a tough gig right now. Budgets are tightening. ROI is being scrutinized. There's a ton of indecision, and there's economic headwinds that are howling. The UK in particular is fighting sluggish growth. So how's your sales org adapting? And specifically, how are you motivating your leadership, your sales managers and sales leadership in this extreme uncertain time?
Well, you're painting a pretty dark picture there, Rob.
It's been a tough couple quarters for me. I'm going to be honest. The first time I missed my target in 10 years, so it's been tough.
I mean, I think there's a danger actually. Sometimes we can talk ourselves into a bad place. Sales has always been a tough gig, and as long as I can remember, there have always been reasons why things would be difficult. There's always been reasons why things would be challenging. Whether those are local issues, global issues. So I think there's a temptation to look to lay blame, and I think that's a dangerous game to get into. And I think one of the key things for salespeople is you've got to take responsibility, because there's always an excuse. So I think as salespeople, we have to take responsibility for delivering the outcome. That's not to say there aren't challenges.
What do you think it is that the top, your top salespeople, your top 3 salespeople, what are they doing differently now? Can you pinpoint that?
Yes, I think. I mean, successful salespeople tend to. I've always tended to do certain things. I mean, I think. They show up. They keep showing up every day. They're active. They're visible. They're vocal. And I don't think it's an accident. But usually, the best performing salespeople in the business are also the hardest working salespeople. It might not look like that to the outsider, but I guarantee that the guy who's getting all the leads and closing all the deals is also the one that's staying on top of what's happening in the industry, working relationships with partners really hard, keeping his network up to date, putting in the hours. So I think really when it comes to sales, there isn't much of a substitute for hard work. But I also think that you have to work smart and you have to use the tools that you've got at your disposal. So I'm going back to that time when I was sitting, in my office with my big phone directory on the table, just calling the next number and telling the folks and calling the next number. People don't have to do that now. We've got lots of tools, and you can work a lot smarter. So I think the best salespeople, they work hard, but they work smart. They use the tools at their disposal. And the best ones are also great networkers and network builders. And that's not only within their customers, but it's also within their own organizations. Because I've seen a few people, they're great with their customers, but they tend to rub their colleagues up the wrong way. And actually, smart salespeople realize that if you build good relationships with your colleagues around you, then people will help you when you've got a problem. They'll help you close your deals, and that helps you go a long way as well. So
I think you hit the nail on the head there. It kind of speaks to your sales culture that you've built. I mean, if you're not helping each other out, it becomes toxic. And maybe that's the wrong word, but it becomes not as fun. And I would agree with that. So let's pretend your sales kickoff. You're having all your salespeople are getting together, and you've been tasked with selecting the theme song, the pump up song, before you come up and do your initial talk. What song is that going to be?
There's quite a few. There's quite a few for this one because I have actually done this on a few occasions. So, but I kind of like David Bowie's Heroes. That always goes pretty well. We Can Be Heroes. I've always got time for a bit of Bon Jovi. It's My Life, quite that one. Now I'm Not Gonna Live Forever. That's pretty cool. So there's a few out there. And of course, if you've had a good year, you can always round it off with a bit of Queen. We Are the Champions.
Yeah, I love doing that for sure. I can't wait to play that song again. I want to ask one last thing. It's just been on my mind. I'm just honestly interested in your opinion. You're an IT expert as well. So like generative AI, the ChatGPT, all of this stuff. Do you think it's going to change sales?
Interesting one. I guess on the one hand, I can see AI, taking a lot of admin away. My personal fear is that there's a risk you start to lose originality. When I've heard people talking about the fact that now they put all their emails that they have to write through an AI tool, and it drafts the emails, and then they just edit them. So I hear that, and I think, well, that's great from a labor saving point of view. But are we moving forward into a world where we're losing originality, we're losing personality? So I think there's a risk that badly deployed AI could actually lower the quality of conversations, and take the personal touch out of things. So I'm a little cautious on that whole topic. And again, coming back to, we talked about music earlier on, and obviously, I write I write songs, and the thought that all songs will be written by AI eventually, then where do you find an original thought? Makes me a little nervous, that one.
It was amazing having you on, Peter. You are one of the top CROs in the world. It was a joy to talk to you. Really loved hearing about your experience coming up in IT, almost 30 years. And it's been such a pleasure learning about your organization and how you're going about getting things done. Until next time, keep your sales deep, do work, get paid.
Thanks, Rob. Very, very kind words. Thanks very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and hope to do it again sometime. You take care.
Absolutely. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for joining the Deep Sales Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and share. See you on our next episode. Or for more deep sales insights in the meantime, check out the LinkedIn Sales blog. As always, happy selling.